Testing 1, 2, 3. Hi, I'm music journalist Justin Kantor, and you might know me from my liner notes for reissue record labels such as Soul Music Records, Edsel Records, and Funky Town Grooves. I've also been a contributing writer for websites such as Soul Tracks, soulmusic.com, All Music Guide, and blogcritics.org. And today I wanted to talk with you about a new reissue that I'm really excited about, and it's one that I had the opportunity to write the historical essay for. And this reissue in particular is a box set of 7 studio albums from the great British female soul vocalist JAKI Graham, and it's simply entitled The Studio Albums 1985 to 1998. And this 7-disc box set comprises many of the hits that she's well known and loved for across the world, including Heaven Knows, Could It Be I'm Falling in Love, Round and Around, Breaking Away, From Now On, Ain't Nobody, Absolute Essential, and many more, which we'll get to in just a minute. So here is the package, and let's examine some of the contents of it. Let's start with the first album, which is called Heaven Knows, and this was released in 1985, and it came on the heels of JAKI's success in '84 of What's the Name of Your Game and Heaven Knows, which some people may know better as being done by Layla Hathaway in 1990. She had a #1 R&B hit in the United States with it, but the original version was done by JAKI in 1984 and produced by Derek Bramble. And so as you can see, each album or CD comes in an individual card sleeve. So here is the particular disc for Heaven Knows. In addition to Heaven Knows, this includes Round and Around and JAKI's first duet with David Grant, remake of the Spinners' Could It Be I'm Falling in Love. And it also includes, what was the other one I wanted to mention on here? Oh yeah, JAKI's duet with her producer Derek Bramble called Loving You. One of the reasons I mentioned Derek as well, in addition to his absolute importance as a writer and producer of JAKI's first 3 albums, is that you might know him as bassist from Heatwave during the early 80s. Since working with JAKI, he's gone on to work with a lot of other great artists in the 80s, 90s, and on, including Whitney Houston. I had the opportunity to interview JAKI and Derek for the liner notes that I wrote, which I'll get to in a minute. But let's talk a little bit more about the music first. The second disc in this set is Breaking Away. It includes the title track as well as Step Right Up, Set Me Free, Still in Love, which some people might be familiar with from the original version recorded by Angela Bofill. Sorry about that light there. It was also remade later by Vanessa Williams on her Comfort Zone album, which Derek also produced that version. But 12 great tracks on this album. One which I really like called The Love of Your Life, which Derek actually collaborated on writing and producing with Alan Gorey from Average White Band, and I believe Molly Duncan from the band also played on that particular session. And just on a side note, Edsel Records, which released this box set, also last year released a fabulous box set of Average White Band, which I also wrote the liner notes for, so a little plug there, and that includes some cool interviews too. Anyway, moving on, I did want to mention that the Breaking Away album that I just showed you, upon the release of the single Step Right Up, JAKI gained the distinction of hitting the Guinness Book of World Records for the first British female soul vocalist to ever have 6 consecutive top 10 or top 20 hits in the British charts. So, the third album is called From Now On, and this is an interesting one because there was a break of about 3 years after Breaking Away, and this is discussed in the liner notes, some of the things that went on that caused that, but One thing I will mention, that's talked about in there briefly, is that this album was released in the United States by Orpheus Records, which at the time was very hot with Freddie Jackson and Melba Moore. Um, the cut from now on, the title track, really cool kind of New Jack Swing groove, but very soulful still, is included on here, as well as a really nice song called The Better Part of Me. Also, one of my favorite tracks of Jaki's ever, Faking the Feeling, which Derek co-wrote with Preston Glass and Cliff Dawson. And it was interestingly covered the following year by the late saxophonist George Howard, featuring the late Sarita. Both versions are really cool, but I do think this version is the tops. Also, production on this album from Mantronic, as well as David Pack from Ambrosia, on a duet that Jaki did with Philip Ingram called I Still Run to You, which was written by Michael McDonald. So a lot of interesting people contributed to this. There's also a remake of Brenda Holloway's Every Little Bit Hurts, which this remake was released as a single in the United States in early 1990. And the remake that is produced by Mantronic is one of Alicia Myers' I Want to Thank You, which is really interesting to hear Jaki give her spin on that. And a great, great ballad called Nobody's Fool, which I really think would have made a great theme for a movie. Unfortunately, this album didn't get a lot of promotion. There were a lot of things going on, which, as I mentioned, you can read about in my essay, which we'll get to in a minute. But moving on to the 90s is the fourth disc in this set, and this is called Real Life. This introduced Jaki to a much wider audience in the 90s because it had been 5 years since she had done the From Now On album, and she came back hard with a remake of Shaka Khan's Ain't Nobody, which was remixed in a lot of forms and became a #1 dance hit in the US. And this album was released in many, many countries, including Bulgaria, Indonesia. Interestingly, this period where she was recording for Avex Records, signed to their Japan division, the albums weren't released in the UK, in her homeland, but was released in the US on Critique Records. There's the disc. In addition to Ain't Nobody, Absolute Essential, another big dance hit. The original is a New Jack Swing version for sure, but the up-tempo house-type mixes were what really scored big for her on that song. Also a remake of Joyce Sims' Come Into My Life. Remake of Do Me Baby, the Prince song that Melissa Morgan popularized in the mid-'80s. And some interesting reinterpretations of her earlier hits, Set Me Free, and I believe, yes, Breaking Away, this time produced by Phil DaCosta. And a nice song called You Can Count on Me for Love, which was a minor hit in the UK at the time as a single. But again, the album was not released there, so this box set marks the first time that Jaki's Avex albums have been released in the UK. So that takes us to our second Avex album in the set, called Hold On. Interesting because Jaki had another song called Hold On her first album, but this is totally different. This album was largely produced by Rod Gammons, and also 3 great contributions from Cutfather and Joe, Saving It Up, Heaven, and Seeking You Will Find, as well as the Band of Gypsies with Don't Keep Me Waiting, which served as the title for sort of a re-release in the US that combined some of Jaki's Avex material in the late 90s. Great New Jack Swing tune called Style, as well as Hold On, the title track, is just a really soulful house song. And Shivers, a really nice, emotive, mid-tempo R&B jam. And an interesting ballad/dance interpretation of Vanessa Williams' Save the Best for Last, in addition to a cool R&B rendition of the Christmas song, produced by someone named Wag Ya Tail, who I don't actually know that much about. The 6th album in the set is called Rhythm of Life. Really nice cover on this one, by the way. This was produced by a great guy named Errol Henry, who I also had the opportunity to interview for this reissue. He had some good insights that he shared for my essay. And this, I would say, along with Hold On, is probably the least known of JAKI's albums because primarily released in Japan, a little bit in Scandinavia on a small label called Wise Records, but most of these songs didn't get exposure outside of Japan and Scandinavia. But nonetheless, great tunes. The single in Japan, Your One Desire, which JAKI co-wrote with Earl, is top tune. I really recommend it. Also, if you're familiar with either Zweis or The Affair, which were British soul groups in the late 80s and early 90s, including Stephen Carmichael and Hazel Fernandez. Stephen wrote one of the single releases from this album called Walking on Water, as well as How Can I Be Sure. Now, there's also a rendition of Shirley Murdoch's As We Lay on here, which is interesting to talk with JAKI about. And otherwise, all original material on this album, I believe. A Japanese exclusive track called The Only Love, which is a duet with a guy named Danny Campbell, I believe. Wishing on Every Star, Beautiful Ballad. So, not known as well, but nonetheless, nice mixture of R&B and some dance music on this one, but always with a soulful edge. The final disc in this 7 CD box set, it's hard to choose, but it's amongst my favorites of JAKI's. I'll just say that. It's called My Life. This was from 1998. This one was definitely a Japan-only release, but really good production, consistency thematically on this one. Very personal album for JAKI. She worked with Marlon McClain, formerly of the Dazz Band and Pleasure, as a producer on several of these tracks, and he's another great guy I interviewed for the essay, so he had some insights to share. One of the tracks he produced or co-produced is a remake of the brand new Heavy's Never Stop, and Stokely from Mint Condition is the drummer on that. It's a live recording, and a very surprising remake of ABC's The Look of Love. Very moody, subtly funky interpretation. Some very feel-good up-tempos like My Life and Love and Living Free, and a really touching rendition of Julia Fordham's Happy Ever After, which was originally released in the 80s as an anti-apartheid song. JAKI gives it a really nice spin on here. And I know a really personal song for JAKI, which we talked about, is called I Always, which really speaks to the long relationship of her and her husband, Tony Ornsby, as well as some of the obstacles they've been through as a couple over the years as an interracial couple. Now, here is the booklet. It's a 40-page booklet that comes with this box set, and you get the credits for, let's see if I can get this position right, for each album, with the track listings and producers, songwriters, publishing information, some various photos of single covers, and some shots of JAKI which I hadn't seen before, but always looking fabulous. And then we come to, after the credits, the essay, which I called Round and Around the World, because Round and Around really was the song that broke JAKI as a solo artist in the UK. Be sure to check out that video on YouTube if you haven't heard the song before or seen the video. In the States, it was a minor hit, didn't get a lot of promotion, but big hit in the UK and really fabulous. Kind of captures that sound so well that Derek and JAKI cultivated in the 80s. So it's a 9,000-word essay. So I got to really plunge in deep to JAKI's background as well as a discussion of each album. So I don't know how well you can make it out from here, but you can see in the red print that's the title of each album, and under each of those titles is a discussion of that respective album. So ranging from discussion of the recording sessions to business factors that came into play to the creative process of writing and producing. Again, JAKI offered her thoughts on each album. Derek Bramble talked about the first 3 albums which he worked on, and Errol Henry on Rhythm of Life, and Marlon McClain on My Life. My Life also included a couple of notable Japanese producers who I was not able to get in touch with, but they deserve mention. Tikura and the other name is actually escaping me right now, but do check out their work as well. So this is the back of the box set. So you have a nice close-up of JAKI and a list of the albums. And so I'm very happy to have been a part of this project. I definitely recommend you check it out. It's available on all of Amazon sites, as well as import CDs, and I'm pretty sure other great music sites like Juno and Soul Brother, I would imagine. But the thing about JAKI that really stands out to me is that her soul style is very unaffected. She doesn't resort to dramatic histrionics or anything, but she just has a naturally powerful voice, but she doesn't have to go over the top to really convey that emotion. And from what I've heard, given that she's covered a lot of tunes, people have been very happy with her renditions because she doesn't copy, but she doesn't try to change the core of what the song's about. Like, if you know her version of Ain't Nobody, you probably know what I'm talking about. And Derek Bramble, a great guy, a lot of personality, so it was really fun to talk with him about how songs like Round and Around came to be, and sort of hidden gems like Provocative, which is one of my favorite songs on From Now On. Also, I wanted to mention on that album, David Gamson from Scritti Politti was one of the producers. And as I mentioned, Errol Henry, who actually produced a comeback album in the 90s for the Jones Girls. It was really nice to talk with him about working with JAKI and the album that they recorded in 3 weeks. And Marlon McClain, as I mentioned, from Daz Band, and Pleasure, who's a solo artist in his own right, great jazz guitarist and vocalist as well. So I do hope that you enjoy it. Feel free to contact me here on YouTube or via email with any questions. And I hope to hear your feedback. I hope you enjoy this CD box set if you choose to purchase it. It's pretty reasonably priced. Most of the sites I've seen it on, it runs about $35-40 American dollars, which I think is a real decent price for 7 discs, 86 tracks in all. And plus you get that 9,000 word essay and some cool pictures. So thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you soon. Peace.